And we're live.
That's not as cool.
No, it's not.
They didn't have as good uniforms.
Nope. That would be more acceptable to dress up as World War I Germans than the Nazis.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, because they weren't
Yeah.
evil. They were just, it was a big land dispute. You know, just lots of treaties and stuff falling apart. Yeah, the World War I Germans weren't quite the evil empire that the World War II ones were. Man, those people were evil, eh?
Does anybody else think that they should have struck out and, like, after the second time in 25 years, Germany decided to try and, take over Europe? They should have been like, you know what? No, none of this again. We're shutting this down. I guess we did try that, splitting Germany up. Didn't pan out.
World War II was like the most successful takeover in recent time, right? Like for invasions, right? Like, I mean, the British
Germany?
Empire was pretty huge, like the biggest of them all. But I mean, that was what, 1800s? I can't remember. I'm not.
Well,
gonna-
it depends how you're going to categorize it,
yeah.
right? Because like the British Empire expanded over hundreds of years, bigger and bigger and
Right.
bigger. And Hitler was like, boom,
that was like a
years go
year.
by and he owns most of Europe. You know, it was
Yeah.
an explosive blitzkrieg where he was just conquering all of Europe. It
Well, he had a
happened
real
quickly.
weak hold on it. That's the thing. Like, I have a hard time calling it successful when he held it for, I'm making up numbers, 18 months or something? You know, like, by today's
Yeah. It
war
wasn't
standards,
fair,
that's a
though. Like-
flash in the pan.
But everybody came in and bullied up on him, right? Like he didn't. It's not like the French took things over. It's not like the Poles came in and took their shit back. It was like, no, the Americans and the Russians like put him in a vice from either side and kind of took the stuff back. It kind of bullied him if you think about it. Hitler's the victim in all this.
he was bullied.
Yeah, like there's no 2-on-1, no 2-on-1.
Yeah.
If you see two guys,
You're
like,
leaving out
going-
Britain entirely. He's
No,
got
You're
3-on-1.
leaving out like a lot of Axis powers here.
Well, after Britain, it falls off a bunch.
Britain
you
would
know.
have fought. They'd have had Britain if it weren't for us anyway. We're just kind of propping them up with constant food supplies and munitions and fuel and all that stuff. Like, come on, they survived as long as they did because of that little body of water that separated them from
Yeah.
France. It's
Imagine, like, I didn't know, I guess I probably should have known this, but that the Japanese didn't tell Hitler that they were going to bomb Pearl Harbor. And it was just a surprise. And so, like, I bet part of Hitler knew as soon as that happened that, the end was not approaching immediately, but that it had begun. Because
Can
it
you
was like he'd
imagine?
already pissed off the Soviet Union. I had no idea like how much bigger the Soviet Union's army was, even though they were poorly conscripted and everything, poorly trained. Because like all of these battles I'm watching in this documentary are like, oh, and then they used, the German armor used a pincer movement on Minsk or whatever, and 400,000 Russians were captured. And it's like, fuck, they must be running low on guys. And it's like, and then they moved to this city and captured it. 600,000 were captured. And then it's like, oh my God, like, how did that not end sooner? And it's like, well, Stalin conscripted 16 million more men into his service. And it's like, oh, okay, this is how. He just had a giant country full of people, like, and just did a meat grinder.
absolutely. That's why when we played Company of Heroes, as when you played as the Russians, your squads had more men in them.
Yep. Yeah, they were weaker,
I'm
but you
gonna
could
take
pump
that
out
as
a ton of
fact.
them.
I'm gonna take that as fact.
It
I
is.
don't know. I don't know enough to dispute that, but I'm gonna just say, like, yeah,
A
sure.
lot of my geopolitics come from civilizations. I don't know about this Company of Heroes bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a super interesting show. It's from like 2009, so it's like 8 years old now. But World War II in HD. If anyone out there hasn't checked that out yet, it's really
Or in
interesting.
color, isn't it?
Yeah,
Isn't it
you're
color
right.
or
World War II in color. You're right.
Yeah, I've seen all that. It's very good. I love those old. I love World War II, I guess, which I didn't like. Whenever they caught that fucking Nazi that ran the people over in Charlottesville, they go to his his teacher from high school. He's like, he loved World War II, especially the weaponry. I'm like, Jesus, don't poison that. Like, come on,
Yeah.
it's interesting shit.
It
You could
is.
be interested in World War II and German weaponry without being a fucking Nazi. Like I love the Jews.
For sure.
I think they might be the best people. You want to talk about the master race? It might
Chosen.
be the Jewish people, motherfucker. So I
Look,
kind of didn't
I've
like.
They're
the
in the
choice of
running,
that.
right? They go on the short list. Them
They
and the
are.
ancients. it
Highest
seems.
IQs per capita, the most money. They, so much wealth and property and influence, globally speaking.
They've
Wait
locked
a
down an
goddamn minute.
entire block over by where I live, and the only people I've ever seen actually ride Razor scooters in this century or in this decade are the Hasidic Jews kids. Like, they are shredding with top hats and razor scooters. And I'm like it
awesome.
doesn't matter what time of day it is. I'll just be driving down the street and like, there you go. I'm like, all right, like, yeah, own it. Like, I
curly
don't,
little
sideburns
curls
just blowing
blowing in the wind.
but
Yeah.
they're not little. These things are hanging. Like, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's like